Nair. I am the publisher of Banking Frontiers magazine. As happened today is core banking is a commodity today. Core banking is something which is already there. People are all talking about new areas of technology, experience, customer enrollment is in the center for everybody. But when it comes to experience, on the back end, there are all these technologies that have to run RPA, AI, analytics, cloud, all those kind of stuff is running. Payment itself is such a complex thing. There have been payment hubs that have been discovered for that, for managing the payments and all that. Ultimately, where are we all going to? On one side, you are competing with the fintechs, which are really very agile. They don't have any burden of legacy, compliance, and governance on them. So they are out of the box thinking of ideas and combining all these technologies to disrupt the market. On the other hand, the forward-looking banks are anyways going ahead with better and better technologies. So platform banking has been distinctly identified as one of the stronger strategies for banks to move ahead, where they are giving this platform which can help the banks to scale up and integrate all those new age technologies together under a single platform. I would like Manoj Agarwal, my colleague and my editor, to take over this conversation. Thank you very much, everyone.
My name is Manoj Agarwal. I'm the founder editor of Banking Frontiers. And for me, it's been a fantastic journey interacting with all you guys and all people in the financial sector and seeing firsthand so many fantastic things that are happening. This is one sector which is really moving and has been moving for the last 20 years. And I'm absolutely delighted with this journey. And I look forward to another 20 years of fantastic transformation in this sector. And so today's discussion is also about the future of the sector. So I'm personally very eager to see what comes out of this discussion. Let's go around. Let's hear from Mr. Babu Thomas.
Hello, everybody. I am Babu Thomas from Federal Bank. I manage the entire IT for the bank. I have been in the bank for the last more than 20 years in Federal Bank. I'm based out of Aluva, Cochin, in Kerala.
Let's hear from Mr. Mohit.
Yeah. Good evening, all. I am Mohit Kodnani, and I am General Manager, Information and Data Analytics at Central Bank of India. In fact, this is a new vertical which has been created recently in the bank, and I have a dual role of GM IDA as well as being a CIO for the bank.
So that's been a fantastic period for all this kind of new age technologies over
Certainly.
and over again. Fantastic.
Certainly.
Let's have an introduction from Sharath Chandra.
Hey, thanks, Manoj, and great being here. Great to be connecting with all of you. I am a technologist with over a couple of decades of experience. I'd been an entrepreneur, technology entrepreneur for almost a decade, and then worked with companies like Yahoo, Amazon, and Google before joining Airtel Payments Bank. I'm the CIO for the bank.
Yeah, you rightly said banking is becoming a part of a daily life. Earlier it used to be like, I don't know, once or twice a month. Great. Let's have an introduction from Mr. Ratnesh Chandra.
Hi, good evening to all. I'm Ratnesh Chandra. I'm a CTO of Punjab and Sindh Bank. Actually, I have around more than 23 years of experience in IT, risk management, as a CISO, as a information security officer.
Thank you. Delighted to hear your background, Ratnesh. Let's hear from Rupinder Singh.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. So myself, Rupinder Singh. I am from DCB Bank. And from last 15 years, I was in the DCB Bank. And from last 20 years, I am associated with the banks and all.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Rupinder. Let's hear from Russell Alva.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Russell. I am the GM of the IT department here in IDBI Bank. I have over around 25 years of banking experience, both on the field and as well as in the digital payment space. Most of my career has been spent in digital banking and emerging payments department. And presently, I am working in the IT of this bank. Thank you.
Thank you, Russell. Let's hear from Ashit.
Hello, good evening. Ashit Makhija. I have been in the IT industry for more than 25 years now, and have worked with various organizations like Microsoft and IBM. IBM actually was the longest one, and Satyan and I were colleagues for a long time. I am right now with SISL Infotech, and I am managing the entire technical operations and the services business unit. In fact, we're trying to.
Let's hear from Satyan, his introduction.
Yeah, very good evening to all of you. Really absolute pleasure to be part of this eminent panel. I bring in almost 25 years of experience, 25 years plus, and have gone through deeper engagements with the banking and financial services industry.
See, I'm Rafael. I got only, I must be the senior most person here with 39 years experience.
Wow.
I joined in 1981 in the banking system, and my first strike was, against the use of calculators in the bank.
Oh.
So yeah, so that is how I started. Now from against the calculators, now we are in a world of artificial intelligence, and we are talking about data analytics and machine learning. And he was just mentioning about the data. Where artificial neurons and all, we are talking about new things. Then this mobile banking, when I talked about in 2010 or in 2009 about a mobile app for our bank in South Indian Bank, people started calling me, even you are talking about words, we should call you Android, Rafael. We are talking about new terms which we do not know.
So the beauty of the banking business in all these years is that it has been a very stable business. Banks are perhaps the least likely to go out of business compared to any other business like shipping or textile or hotels or whatever. There's a particular stability in that business, partly because of the nature of banks themselves, that they're highly leveraged business, and partly society also wants banks to be stable. I think no one wants to deal with an unstable bank as such for any kind of financial service. So because of this, what happened is banks had pretty relatively easy access to money, which was their raw material, right? But these days, the world economy is moving towards a new raw material, that is data. Data is said to be the new oil, and which will drive the future of business for a variety of businesses, right? And so from that perspective, one thing interesting about banks is that not only are customers interested in willing and eager to park their money with you, they're also willing to trust a lot of the data with you than they would with a typical other company. Banks somehow tend to generate more trust among their customers than any other sector and industry. Now, what is definitely going to happen is, given that banks are spreading everywhere into all kinds of transactions, banks are going to have a lot of variety of data and qualitative data, not a lot of junk data, right? Now, with this new data, with this new oil, let us try to understand 3-4 different perspectives of what new kinds of business directions and business landscape is going to be for the banking sector. Traditional banking is obviously going to continue. You're lending and basic financial services, but that's based on money as a foundation. But when you look at data as a foundation, what kind of services are we talking of that the banks can offer to all kinds of customers? Retail customers, SME customers, corporate customers, even government as a customer, right? So who would like to take the first?
I will take the initial plunge. You mentioned about money and trust. Actually, both go hand in hand because of people. The reason may be customers trusting a bank with the data should be the basic reason should be because they trust their money also with bank. So they think that if somebody can be trusted with money, they will be thinking that these people can be trusted with my details also. That should be one reason because it is trust. That is how the trust could have been built up all along. And another reason is that you mentioned about the richness of data with the banks. Yeah, that is very much true. We have banks are, apart from demographic data and the other account opening data pertaining to the account opening form, as the customer journey along with the bank through the years, bank will collect a lot of data, especially on his payment, payment behaviors and all those things. Actually, bank can have a clear-cut idea. That is why, because now many of the banks are giving this pre-approved loans. One reason, one single product which bank use this payment behavior of each customer, analyze that and offer him a pre-approved loan. Another reason could be that banks use this data on a very much on a discretionary note. They don't normally jump into every other reason, identify this thing and go to the customer whether you like this, whether you like this. Banks are a little bit selective in canvassing these things. So customers they should not be feeling like that banks are disturbing them and they are not walking into their privacy. So there is somewhere, I think banks have kept that that Lakshman Rekha. Somewhere we have drawn that line so that customers are not feeling that we are encroaching to their privacy, even though we are having there all those data, we are not encroaching. That could be another reason for this increased trust. And bank has to be a little bit more careful with the players like Indian GDP are coming into effect. So today we are giving a 360 view of customer back to them. Tomorrow they may ask for a 360 view of their data with us. There is all possibility with this Indian GDPR coming. They will ask, what is bank should give us a 360 view of their data with the bank and how you are using it. If those things, there can be a demand from the customer. And I think with this particular law coming into being.
So that is fantastic, Babu Thomas. And I think it's going to be very difficult for average organization to give its customer a 360-degree view of the data they hold about that customer. Simply because a typical organization, a business organization, is not that caring about its customer. If someone buys a soap or a telephone or whatever from me, it might be the end of my relationship with that customer. But for bank, it is a relationship. It is not just a transaction. May I request Sharath to add something to this, to add his perspective on data as the new oil?
Sure, Manoj, thanks. I think I concur with Mr. Babu Thomas. See, definitely data is becoming richer and richer with every engagement, every interaction that we're having with the customers. We not only have direct relationship and engagement with our customers, but we are also part of a transaction that's happening where the customer might be using us or interacting with our systems through a merchant and providing us some insights into what kind of transactions they are building, so on and so forth. At this point in time, when digital payments and other channels are becoming so much more absorbed and adopted by our customers, with the heightened level of security that is there, there is a stronger trust that our banking system and our overall infrastructure is becoming more secure, and it is okay for me to use a card or use safe and easy systems like the UPI and others to do payments and others. So there is a lot of data that is coming into us, and trust is actually a very important aspect. It is inherent that people have been trusting banks to store one of the most important assets, money, with them and treat it with respect and with customer insights around that. Now it is the next level based on this trust that it is okay for us to be able to receive all this, and that customer trust is something that we are privileged to have, and it is our customers' graciousness that we are able to get this data. We have to treat this with respect, and I think even regulatorily, if you look at RBI, the focus is very severely on ensuring that customers are always on the top of the funnel there, and their needs and their concerns are very, very are taken to heart by every aspect of the bank, whether it is technology, whether it is individuals who are using this data. So with this trust that we have and the data that the customers are giving with us, it comes with a lot of responsibility. It is important for us to use this data carefully, manage it effectively, and ensure that this data can be used not for our benefit, but for the benefit of the customer. And this is where I think this is the oil, right? This is the oil which will help us deliver better services to our customers and hence make their life more easier, make their life much more richer by providing them services that they want. It should not be about what the bank wants the customers to use. It is we are those agents who are understanding what our customer needs, who the customer is, what are their needs, when do they have the highest need for that, and can we deliver that service at that point so that the need can be most optimally, effectively satisfied. If you're able to think about it that way, this is where the technologies like AI and ML and all are very important. But this is what we want to be able to do. Understand the customer, their need, when they need it, and deliver it at the most opportune time through the best channel that they are looking at this for. If you're able to do that, I think that is a great way for us to serve our customers better.
Okay, thank you so much. Let me come to Rupinder and ask, Rupinder, what do you see your bank or a typical well-managed bank offering its customers in 2 to 3 years time frame that it is currently not able to do or currently not even thinking of offering? What new things do you see coming on the horizon in 2 to 3 years using data, primarily using data?
So rightly said, the data comes with very some responsibility also with us, and customer is also thinking on the same way that it is on the safe hand. Yes, and we have to give the right product at the right time to the customer with the when the customer is required that data, basically required something from the bank. So that kind of a thing, yes, we are also doing the things in the same way, and we are also working on the same manner for the data mining and all, for data analytics, to give some new good things to the customer when it demands. And when demand raised by the customer, it's not a thing that before raising the demand by customer, we have to be give to them before that. So that kind of analytics, we are working on that. And before it comes to the bank, we should go to the customer and say, it's your need, can we serve to you? And we are also working on the same lines to give this like a pre-approved loan, some kind of where the customer can say, yes, I need the loan. If it is available to me, I can take that. These are the few things which I need, but not now. But yes, coming future might be the customer may require. So that kind of analytics we are doing, and we are also serving to our customer in a way that the customer can opt for that in the future also.
And do you see this as being a major competitive advantage?
Yes.
As compared to someone who can't offer this upfront?
See, this is the demand of the time, or you can say this is the this would be a major requirement will become in the future, that if even the customer don't know that whether he requires in the future, we are offering that. See, it definitely will give us a difference from the other also, that in futuristic demands we can view upfront now.
Okay.
That is the help of the data that will be a serving better to the customer.
Okay. Let me come to Russell now. Russell, the point I want to discuss next is, so banks are going to be data-rich organizations, and obviously there will be certain organizations, certain sectors of the economy that are going to be data poor. Okay, either they don't have access to the data, or lots of data because of the nature of the business, or customers simply don't trust them with that much data, or maybe the government and regulators are not allowing them to capture so much data, for whatever reason. Okay, so let's assume there is a set of sectors and organizations that are not very data rich, and here we have banks and financial organizations that are data rich. What kind of collaboration do you see possible in such a scenario that is a win-win for both the data rich organizations and the data poor organizations? So I think this is one very good way to leverage data, serve those who are data poor.
What I would say that what we have done, we have created, as he was mentioning, that a separate business intelligence and analytics department. As you said, some sectors we may not get that kind of data, But the thing, what you must understand, at least I think 50% of the people are now having, smartphones. Only 50% is not having even connectivity. That is India's situation. But things will improve, and with the available data, click of a button, you are generating 30, 40 fields of data when you click any particular site or any Facebook. So much unstructured data and structured data is available. We'll be able to gather all this information not only from the accounts, like you give scoring, CIBIL score and other things. They will also start collecting so much data from their behavior on Facebook and Twitter and other social media, and all this data will be analyzed with the deep learning. All will be taken as score built into the system, and ultimately we will be able to identify whether this person will make that account regular or irregular. We will be able to take that decision based on that behavior of the customer, because that score will take care of even otherwise from the oil which you are mentioning, necessary data to identify that customer that is good for us.
So
that is what I believe.
Say,
we will reach that stage.
What I want to, if I can explain a little more, see, for example, there's a CIBIL score, right, related to financial transactions. But there's no equivalent of CIBIL score based on what you eat. There's no equivalent CIBIL score based on the kind of education, let's say, your kids want.
No, that's what I'm trying to say. All this will be captured in the long run. Now we are talking about based.
How will banks serve, let's say, the education system better or the food industry better because of the data that it has, but they may not have? That collaboration, how will that happen?
No, that libraries of data will be at some point of time integrated over a period of time in rating agencies and in other libraries will be available. That is already happening. That is what I'm trying to say. When you click a button or check a website, even your behavioral pattern, everything is being analyzed, and that is going deep dive even into your behavior. And learning is taking place. Machines are already learning. That is how when you open your mobile in the morning, you get that the last 5 years that in which all places you are there. Google is doing so many things you can't even imagine. So all these are being captured. It is there in the oil field already. It is a sea. Yeah. So it will all be available. It's a matter of time. See, when the artificial intelligence, when this term was originally coined in 1956, the data was so less. This deep learning, up to machine learning is okay. 1980, 81 only. This deep learning techniques, even the algorithms for that were developed and started. People could use it. So if you ask me, for a small bank like us, with the data available with us, we can go only up to machine learning. We cannot go beyond that. We don't have that kind of data, if you ask me honestly now, as of now, to put that kind of algorithm in place to understand what is that we want to do with the data. It should be what do you call 10 to the power of 12 is terabyte. It should be 10 to the power of 40, 48. 10 to the power of 100, I do not know. That kind of data should be available to do the deep learning and get this the required. That will happen. It's a matter of time. It's a matter. That's what I'm telling. 2010 when I talked my management about a mobile app, nobody was ready to even understand what it is. Now ours is the best mobile banking product available. I would say. Even we introduced in 2016 this digital e-lock for locking system. Now RBI has made it mandatory for all banks. We got awards in right from the day I joined IT department, 2015, 16, 17. We were getting awards only for our digital e-lock. And even now, I think our mobile app is the only app where you can digitally lock digital products. Not only ATM cards, not only mobile, internet banking, you can lock the entire account. Many banks even now, they are not introduced. So everything will be available in 3 years from now. That is the kind of data available now. That's what I believe. It's a matter of time. So we want enough data for deep learning, and that will be available.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. Let me come to Russell. Russell, how do you see data-rich banks and data-poor sectors collaborating and value-adding? And do you think that banks will be able to compete in some ways with the big techs in terms of, because the big techs definitely have much more data, but banks perhaps have some kind of data that is very qualitative. So can banks find a niche among big techs in offering database services or intelligence?
In fact, banks are in the best position to have the most sensitive data about an individual, I would say. In fact, we are so data rich that we have data, I would put it in a perspective of a 360-degree angle of what the customer needs, what he requiring on a day-to-day basis. And since the payment ecosphere has come into space where we have integrated with almost all financial enterprises, the entire data that we hold is a very priceless commodity. Now, when it comes to the data poor entities, today I would say that banks are in a position to act as a service provider by platforming this data in a way which can be leveraged by these entities. As on date, I would say banks have not yet woken up to that perspective of feeding or providing that type of service to the data poor entities who require such data. But by platforming their services in a way which not only restricts exposure of the sensitive data, but at the same time enriching the requirement of the customer, who is a common customer between these entities. That's where I feel banks can leverage. They are in the, I would say, roadmap to doing that. But if you really ask me a model which we can extrapolate in the current situation, I don't think we have at this juncture. Our bank does have that.
One example that obviously comes to mind is startups. When a bank which has 1 million customers and billions of records, it can obviously be a great enabler of some database services to fintechs, to startups, not just fintechs, startups. Do you see that actually taking off in a meaningful way?
We are still, I would say, a little away from that at this juncture because of certain regulatory restrictions in terms of how we use our data.
Okay.
That's the biggest constraining factor which comes into play. So banks have been much more cautious in leveraging on this data with the external entities. That's how I would put it. Once the regulatory framework is much more clear and more transparent, I think the banks will go all out on that.
Okay. If you may ask Satyan, do you see any trend anywhere in the world pointing to what Russell has just said? Are there economies, maybe Singapore or something, or US or UK, that are allowing some kind of sandboxes or something for banks to reach out and leverage the data? Europe, for example, is a continent.
Correct.
Which is saying that, use the data.
Yeah.
In a meaningful
manner.
In a
I mean,
safe
yes.
manner.
Yes, I mean, the European banking did open up to the PSD2 standards so that there could be intermediary data people who can say, like we have a mobile number portability, you can have a bank account portability basis the preference, and then these parties, intermediaries, can recommend that why you should switch over from bank A to bank B. So those kind of things are happening in the Europe side. With regards to this whole data poor, data rich, what we are seeing globally and as well as in India is, and I was personally associated with SBI YONO project. That's where what the bank has created the whole platform where it is not just digital banking, but they have also created a financial superstore within the app. And also they are offering the lifestyle products. So whether it's like you buying things from Amazon, you're buying things from Flipkart. So bank is now getting that non-banking transactional data, which is kind of giving them insights into their buying preferences, their behavior aspect, what in terms of their travel preferences, things like they have almost 200 partners on their online marketplace, the SBI YONO project. So that gives a bank a tremendous treasure trove of data to understand beyond the transaction data that they already have. And that kind of further enriches the customer insights and then what bank can offer. At the same time, as Sir rightly pointed out, still there are RBI regulations in terms of what banks can share that data with others. But definitely that will happen. Some regulations will come in future, and RBI is evolving set of regulations like video KYC just came in February and kind of really gave a lot of bank a lot of comfort on doing a video KYC AI based onboarding a customer, right? Those things, you sir rightly pointed out that the regulations will emerge and make banks more favorable, and banks can then leverage the data that they have and then the data that is available outside. There are a lot of API data providers who provide a lot of data from API services, and you combine those data sets to offer something very relevant for your customer. So it's not about just a banking transaction or understanding that I'm looking for a loan, but you engage the customer when he's looking for a house and then completely support through that house buying journey where loan becomes just an incidental part. So that's how you start gathering that data, and that's where things like machine learning, deep learning will start helping much and more on that part of it. So data will be very crucial in terms of what banks will provide services going further.
May I request Mohit to comment something on his perspectives? Any new perspectives, any different perspectives do you have, Mr. Kodnani?
It's not banking anymore. It's now going to be lifestyle banking, you know. You will take the banking to the needs of the customer, and all that he is looking for, maybe for a house or just for a shopping or going to restaurant, all that can be just tracked around in the banking platform, and that's a recent terminology which has now emerged, that is called BAP, that banking as a platform. So probably those that is, I'm seeing writing on the wall. I think it's going to come very soon, and it's just a question of how the regulators open up the banking APIs to be opened for the third-party use. So basically, it will be open banking wherein the banks will open up their APIs for third-party use, and then those, as you said earlier, that data rich and data poor, those bridging can happen by opening up those APIs. So that is one part. And on the second part, probably the data which bank is having, I think a lot of banks are already working on the analytics and business intelligence, and all actually it's a mammoth data, and the only difference between the data as a oil and data as a customer data, I will say there is the only difference that oil gets, once you consume it, it gets down. It's whereas the data which you consume in the bank or in for a customer, it gets richer more. So it's always going to be more analytics, more AI, more ML, and that all will open up the banking platforms.
The current kind of modernization that you are engaged in, is it assumption based on data rich modernization? Because earlier modernization was mostly based on structured data. Right now, the unstructured data exceeds the structured data in any kind of organization. So is unstructured data, do you think, going to provide much more power to a financial organization, to a bank today? How does that unstructured data compare with structured data in terms of shaping the bank's business and strategy?
Data is nothing but is a money. See, when we started the bank, actually, we used to talk about the hard cash and all that. Now, data is something actually which is moving from here and there. And even today at the villages and remote places, they are actually amazed when you see that when the data is going from here and there, how the transaction is happening and all that. So now we have moved from hard cash to now means like ATM transaction. Then we have moved to POS and other things and all. Now, if you see nowadays, because since I have worked in fact, India Post Payment Bank and all that, there, because since it is a payments bank and there is no, not, as per the payment bank's rule and all, we cannot lend. So there is no income as such. Then how to generate those income and all? So what we've started is basically is, as you say, that now that banking, which is a traditional, now it will moving to API based banking. So there will be a lot of integration with the API, means like third parties. So the whatever cross selling, upselling, what will happen and all that. So now today, suppose we have whatever bank is having only the structured data, because as per RBI guidelines on all, we have some kind of the data which we have taken based on the certain guidelines, certain based on certain rules and regulation and all that. But there are sectors like fintech and all, although they are but they are not mainly regulated with the RBI, but they have the technology, they have the thinkings and all that, and they are developing lot of kind of apps, lot of kind of information. They have already ties with different small organizations. Like if you say simple, I'm just giving the example. I have attended one of the conference where all banks MDs and chief of the technology have been asked, and they have, and then at the same time that fintech company has been asked, and they've been asked that how the bank and that fintech can go together and do something, and how this so ultimately there was a lot of discussions where actually fintech company has given us some kind of data analysis. They said that I have a lot of data which I'll give you, and based on those data you can give some kind of loans and all. Like suppose they're saying that we have a data like, suppose the customers having purchasing power, how the purchasing that Swiggy, how they are going to how to purchase and all that. So something like that. So they have lot of data for different kind of what is the purchasing power in terms of the say suppose they are going to some hotel chains and all. So they have the data for hotel chains and all that. When they are going for say like suppose Amazons and all that, how they are purchasing and what kind of purchasing power they have and all. So they said whether I will give the data, you use those data and all that, analyze those data, what is their capacity, and you prepare the loan segments and all, how the loan can be given and all. So now the data is so much important, even the unstructured data is so much important and all that. Based on that, and since we already have business analytics, we have data warehousing, as you told that oil, this is data is nothing but oil, and whatever how then bank is having the capacity, how much you mine, the more you mine, the more it will come. So the data, since you are having so much and all, you can type with API based with all the fintech, you can get the data, mine the data, and then based on that you analyze and you reach to the customers, and then you get the banking. So nowadays, based on the traditional, now we have to move to API banking, and the data is going to be the major part of tomorrow futures banking and all.
What kind of collaboration do you see between data rich and data poor organizations? But also now I have a new thinking between data rich and data rich organizations. Are two organizations that are data rich, let's say a bank and an insurance company, or a bank and a retailer, or a travel portal and a financial company. Do you see collaboration happening between two data rich entities as well? And will they have to collaborate one-to-one or on a platform mode like mentioned by, I think, Russell?
Yeah, I think, firstly, I think platform is a bit away. It's definitely some time away, because the peer-to-peer or one-on-one interaction has to really start before we reach a stage of maturity where, multiple people can share and push their data, so it could be data sharing on a platform. Now, but yes, I think the thing is that different entities are collecting different kinds of data, and all will have data which is relevant, or pieces of data which are relevant to the other one. So that's one. Secondly, if I take a cue from what the question which you were asking about the unstructured data and what Mr. Ratnesh also just mentioned, I think going forward, everybody till now has really worked very hard on the structured data, and we built up robust systems, and we've built up very strong analytics and learnings on that, or AI and ML models on that. I think going forward, the importance of unstructured data will continue to grow, because a larger part of a customer's data is in the unstructured form. It is whether it is a social media, or whether it is some documents, it is some contracts which have been signed between people. So I think that pulling out of that, and the comparative edge probably will come to people who focus on unstructured data and have the ability to share that with the other data rich or data poor entities, and then and do a complement of both the kinds of data.
But more and more of the unstructured data is sitting on the cloud. Do you see banks increasingly going to the cloud? And if so, in what manner? What will be the next 2 or 3 stages that banks can step into a cloud and leverage the oil, the data oil, the data oil that is sitting out there? Or is it better?
Exactly.
Is it possible to bring the data into the data center?
If you could take the example of the other side on a Facebook, and where the unstructured data is available, and people are more inclined to get more unstructured data and mining the data to give more facility to customers. See how what is the customer behavior. They are also analyzing that customer behavior from that platforms, and what is the customer demand on that. Analyzing by the demands of the customer, whether he wants to go outside, whether he wants to buy some products and all. So on that path, now banks are also working on those aspects to go ahead and to find out the unstructured data and how we can give more facility to customers on that. And this will also help. It may possible, may not possible to get the entire data on the bank side, but yes, by this unstructured data, yes, banks are also getting some benefit out of that, and they are also getting good feeds for their own customers to approach, and in a way that they can also facilitate those customers there where they are also demanding, but they are not able to complete their demand physically.
Okay.
Yes, it is good.
If you may ask Sharath, any other new perspectives on leveraging cloud for the banks as a move?
See, when you talk about the cloud, what we are saying is that it is a conglomerate of multiple kinds of data points that are available, both structured, unstructured, and everything. But the key aspect of any cloud solution is to be able to look at a 360-degree view of anything that is happening. Now, in a conventional non-cloud environment, we've always had situations where there was one application living there, some other application living somewhere else. And one of the key challenges over the last many years has been, how can we get all of that together through some mechanisms? There are a lot of distributed technologies, event-driven technologies, which allow us to do that now. But if you look at a cloud offering, one, it gives us much simpler mechanisms, much better technologies, which can scale or operate things in a much better this thing, rather than we having to build everything ourselves. Now, can we build a customer 360 with information that is coming to us from multiple sources in a very efficient manner? And can we create decisions based on these to, like I said, deliver the right customer service at the right point when the customer needs it? I think that is typically what we're looking at. And all the data that whether a Google kind of system has, or a Facebook has, or an Amazon has, or any other of these things, they are APIs that are available on their side too. With the right customer consent, we should be able to get that data onto our own systems through, if you look at advertisement data, or if you look at any other data of a customer on their Gmail or others, with the right consents, we can access some of that.
Okay.
Amazon has APIs where I can access those data. Facebook can definitely give us a lot of the things around through their APIs around what is the posts that are going on. Now, if, for example, I know that somebody is posted on Facebook saying that, hey, I'm traveling to this country in the next few days. Let us say it's just a social post that they have done saying that, hey, I'm excited about this. Now, can we do sentiment analysis of those kind of posts that are coming in? And can I say, hey, I know you're traveling possibly for 2 months to this location. Is your travel insurance taken care of? Is your ticketing taken care of? While you are away, are there your bill payments and other things that I can handle for you here, right here? There could be multiple such opportunities that can come up by looking at things in an integrated way. Now, why cloud versus why not in our own infrastructures, right? I mean, we could also do it in a private cloud or in a hybrid cloud. But the step up that I think banks need right now is to start thinking about cloud offerings as not just saying that, okay, I have virtual machines or I have containers, but the ability that I can, when needed, increase the capacity to process data and reduce when not needed, where I can do this efficiently. And I can also ensure that it is targeted to a single customer. So the whole idea of getting a, what shall we say, a category of one for this customer, a single customized product offering. Can we do that by injecting data from multiple sources? I think I would look at cloud like that more than anything else. It just allows us to scale or descale much faster. And let us say, for in this case, right, when I know that there's a sentiment and there's an event that is happening in this customer's life that they're going to travel, can I now bring data together for this one customer, auto scale it, run some machine learning algorithm just for this, and see what can we offer? That flexibility with cloud is what I think is very powerful. I don't think we're using it just yet.
Yeah, Manoj, if I may add in, you're right, Sharad, that the power is there, but somehow worldwide also we have seen, and also in India, that in spite of good clouds being available, the adoption of cloud by banking sector is almost less than 5%, and that also a very tier 2 or 3 applications, non-data critical applications running on cloud. Now the banks are starting to see, but their fundamental concern is, and which is rightly, in terms of adherence to RBI regulation, compliance and all. So that is what holds the bank to push certain good data sets to cloud and leverage the power of cloud, as Sharad mentioned. So what we are doing it, so that is very, very rightly observed. Yeah.
Satyan, I'd like to just add on to that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll just add on to that, saying that I don't think RBI is unaware of this. I think RBI has a very strong cloud policy. I think their guidelines toward, if you look at how we can use cloud and others, are very mature. They understand the latest technology that's happening. They're putting controls in place so that this technology can be leveraged carefully without having customer dissat happening or customer incidents happening. So I think the industry is growing in that space. I think the regulator is very mature in that perspective towards how banks can leverage cloud. And with the localization of data and all these things, they've been able to also force cloud companies to come into India, because India is a very, very large market for all of them. So if you look at this, right, Amazon, Google, Azure, Oracle, all of them are forced to come into India, and for the good of them as a business and for all of us, right? So I think in the next few years, we will definitely see
much more
much better.
Absolutely.
And the other thing is for us as banks, I believe that we are a platform player. As a bank, we cannot do everything. And it's very clear, right? I can do very strong, very quick video KYC based onboarding. I can provide possibly digital payment options. I can distribute, I'm a payment bank, so I can distribute financial services. Some of the other banks can generate or produce financial services and also give to them. But as banks, we still are focused on a few things. But when we look at this as a customer 360-degree view, and we say that we are data rich, but we behave like a platform where with customer consent and the right and mature APIs that we can publish, we can bring in partners who come to us. And with that consent, the customer understands that he or she is engaging with a third party, but also engaging with the bank, and gives us the consent that, hey, there is this service that I need from this third party. There is this data of mine that you as a bank are holding. I give you permission to share that. with that consent model that is coming in, and I think the account aggregators, the new model for account aggregators and all are in the right direction there. I think we will see banks becoming very, very strong platform players. Just like maybe a decade back, Amazon was a platform player who opened up all these APIs and brought in new partners. Facebook, when they opened up their Facebook application store, they opened Facebook APIs, and we see the number of apps that have come on top of it, right? I'm seeing that happening over the next couple of
Okay, so
of customer consent will deliver that.
So that brings me to my next interesting point. What happens when with APIs, banks are getting into the business side of things. And when business side of things one gets into, there are all kinds of contracts that are taking place, right? If I go and shop on Amazon or wherever, Flipkart, it's a miniature contract. But between businesses, there are proper contracts, terms of payment, terms of delivery, escrow, this, that. Now with APIs, banks will literally get access to a lot of contract kind of data, provided that they open up themselves to being a part of that contract in some way or the other, as a guarantor, as a enabler, as a whatever. Now, I think personally that there's going to be a huge amount of business intelligence that banks can tap into when they get access to millions of contracts. How do you see banks leveraging this kind of data? This is a new kind of data that banks typically never had unless they're dealing with very high level corporate customer in a complex supply chain kind of situation. But let's say I, as an individual, place a contract with someone to send me, I don't know, 100 liters of milk every month. That's a contract. And that kind of, if I have 10 such contracts, that already becomes a lot of very rich data. How do you see contract data becoming something that banks can leverage as they drive their business forward and offer new services to their customers? Mr. Rafael, would you like to take a shot at this?
I think we are using only very limited, unstructured data. I'm talking about the entire bank, maybe SBI or HDFC, maybe and ICICI Bank may be using unstructured data to a certain extent. But as far as I know, we are now concentrating on the user experience, as Mr. Babu was talking about the pre-approved loans. We are and all banks can have tie up with at least minimum 3 life insurance partners, general health insurance partners, 3 health insurance companies. So 9 companies, we have that data, and through mobile platform and all, how we can enhance the user experience. Only we have touched, I would say, the tip of the entire iceberg. The way we can leverage what others were mentioning. We are using only very little unstructured data as of now. So going forward, as rightly mentioned by one of the panel members, the moment it is open up and APIs are open up, we can do a lot of things. But that depends upon the regulators, data privacy policies, that is going to come in. How we are going to leverage all depends upon how regulators allow the bankers. Now bankers are trying to improve the user experience. Every possibility is there that as somebody was mentioning, RBI is fully aware of what is happening, what is the possibilities. So slowly, taking the customer's consent, things will be opened up, and all these things will come into play. There is no doubt about that. It's a matter of customers' consent and the regulators' policy. So many things are interlinked. So ultimately, all these things will come up. That's what I believe.
If I come to Mr. Babu Thomas, what do you think of unstructured business data? So we have unstructured personal data, which is maybe what I'm watching on Facebook and or social media and all that. But also now business is generating unstructured data. Contracts is one example. There could be many others. How do you see banks benefiting and leveraging the business unstructured data? I think that's where a place where RBI may not have so much concerns as compared to individual customer data.
Personal data.
Shopping,
right.
Right. That is little more private. But business unstructured data, what is the scope for that? for banks to leverage?
Will also fall into the same like personal data, but it will be used in a totally maybe a little bit more frequently by the bank, because using any personal data, you require consent, all these personal data protection rules. But there will be a consent mechanism will evolve. But this business data, which will be always will be with other entities like GST, there will be a lot of business data, and contracts. One part it will be there can be blockchains with the contracts where it will be available for all the participants. But I think earlier when Sharath mentioned that account aggregators, I think all these data will come into account aggregators, and this will be available for banks and the players who are the participants in the account aggregating framework. It will be available for them. It is the individual banks, individual institutions. They have to decide how we are going to use this, how we are going to get an additional business from a particular customer. Say you mentioned about a farmer or a cooperative society selling 100 liters of milk to say one company on a regular basis. Then bank has to think, business team has to think like what can we support to them. This particular, if they are a customer of this bank, we can see how we can improve their business using these details, how we can go back to them. And another thing is like the just-in-time service. Whatever that Sharath has mentioned, like the just-in-time service, all these data can be used by banks to provide a best-in-time for the businesses. You can give an additional, say, working capital for a particular business who are doing a regular contract with regular frequency. Then why after a time, suppose if we are seeing that contract and amounts are always continuing to be the same for the 12 months, why he is not going for a increase in his business? Normally that should be the trend.
Okay.
Because there should be. So bank can think why he is not. We can go to the customer and see why it is not happening. Whether he may be diverting the funds to some other kind of business. Their bank can support. So these kind of insights bank can build from this business data, contract data, and unstructured data, this invoice data. All these things bank can build another setup other than this retail data structure. Bank should be building. That's a good point you put in forward. But bank can start building these kind of data sets and support the business to make their business go forward, diversify them. And bank can always give an advice that if you diverse into a totally different industry, there can be risk. So bank can provide a risk advisory.
Okay.
So you can have this risk advisory partner. You can connect them both. Bank can act like a bridge between these two. Either there can be both can be data rich, other data poor, but bank can be a middleman. You cannot say it can be
positively.
Positive middleman between our own two customers. So it will be a win-win game for all three parties.
Okay.
Even bank can argue for a discount for some services rendered to the same another customer. So there are possibilities. If you ask the possibilities into this 8 or 9 people, you will get hundreds and hundreds of possibilities.
True.
And supporting their Asit and Satyan are there. They can input with right ingredients to just keep our moment these ideas coming up.
So I will mention the right ingredient after Mr. Mohit.
Okay.
Mr. Mohit, sir, you wanted to add something.
Yeah. Just wanted to add here that I think that the RBI boundaries are clear in terms of using the data for the business intelligence purposes. So as far as the business contracts and transactions are concerned, I fairly understand and agree with you that there should not be much of restrictions. First of all, the second part can be that these contracts and these data can be used for kind of risk management perspective, for exposure management perspective. I will say banks can proactively think about the exposures you can take in that particular businesses per se, or business entity per se, I will say. And there can be also, these data can be utilized for the fraud management perspective also. If you really have that such kind of analytics on these kind of contracts and all, and if you find that there is some linkages to similar kind of contracts outside these two business transactions, and which has the history of kind of some linkage to fraud, I think you can take a trigger at the right time, I will say. So that can be one stepping stone here. Other use can be in terms of the inventory management, I think so. I think, and the working capital cycles, which you can figure it out with these contracts and studying those contracts. Probably you can rather help your customer that if there are some seasonal or cyclic working capital requirements foreseen by you, which probably he may have not taken into factor, you can advise suitable measures to be taken for that. So there are both sides, I will say, both positive and both negative as well, which we can take benefit of it.
Great, thank you. If I may ask Satyan and Ashit, between the two of you, with all the inputs that we have got from the bankers on how unstructured data in the business context could be an enabler for business growth and also for offering services related to risk and fraud reduction and all that, what do you think is the maturity of technologies that are available today? Are they ready to deploy, or do they need some fine-tuning, or I don't know, trials? What is the state overall?
Satyan, let me just start a short at this and then you can continue. I think, and I'm going specifically on the contracts which you mentioned, Manoj.
Okay.
I think there are technologies, and IBM has a technology which is called Watson Discovery, wherein you can actually go into these contracts and look at all the unstructured data which is present in the contracts. Mix it up with some structured content which is there around maybe, the persona of that, for example, that entity with whom you've signed. You can compare different contracts and then you can draw conclusions. So, for example, you may want to see, I have 5 different kinds of housekeeping contracts. Can I go into each one of them? Can I cull out the relevant information? Can I do a comparison between the two? Can I see what is the scope in which? Can I see what are the the prices? Obviously, these are models which develop and they get refined over a period of time. It's not a one-day effort. Mm-hmm. But I was reading a case study of JP Morgan, which said that they had saved 360,000 man-hours per year just because they were able to automate this entire contract comparison and information coming out of the contract. And imagine the power if you know that out of my 5 contracts which I have across the country, across various branches for air conditioners, for example, how many of them have a warranty which is expiring in 6 months? How many of them have a warranty which is expiring in 12 months? How can I, bring them all together? How can I just optimize the cost? How can I bring them under one umbrella, etc., etc. So that culling out of intelligent culling out of the unstructured data, the tools are already existing there, and IBM is already working with this, and we're working with them as partners. Satyan, if you would like to add.
I think well said, Ashish. And that's a very interesting case on contract comparison. It's a great case of analyzing unstructured data. The other place where we are put to use is in this unstructured data is in the trade finance, because corporate banking, the data analytics maturity is much lower than a lot of banks have put a lot of focus on the retail banking. But in trade finance digitization, you can understand the invoices, bill of lading, and each contract, each trade finance transaction will have 15 of those kind of documents. And you can put this technology to use to process and identify frauds and scrutiny and all that in a big way. We are doing that with Standard Chartered and HSBC globally on this. And in India also, we are in a very close stage to close one of that. But that's a great use, because in corporate banking, the stakes are higher, and this kind of technologies really help you. So unstructured has tremendous areas, and I think banks can leverage a lot out of that.
Okay, great, thanks. So gentlemen, we're coming towards the end of our discussion. I'll ask you just one question for which if you can give me a 1 or 2 line answer, and then we'll close it at that, and let's treat that as a summary. So the question is this: everything boils down to integration, right? As long as data is in silos, it's not valuable. When you integrate, it creates value. So just like marriage, you have a boy and a girl, but only when they get married, then the family happens. If they're living separately, they're still separate. So question is this: now when it comes to integrating unstructured data to flow across the organization, okay, is that a challenge? Is that an opportunity? Is that something that to invest in for a financial organization, for a bank? If I can get just a 1 or 2 line answer from each of you, and I think maybe we'll conclude at that.
It
Yes,
is a
Bob.
challenge and opportunity. So with the current technology with available in banks, it may be a challenge, but it is surely a challenge worth taking risk, and it has a lot of opportunity. That is my opinion.
So Rafael, what do
I
you
would say we have reached the data analytics part. Marrying structured data, unstructured data, and to going to the big data. This thing, it might take some more time, but definitely opportunities are there, and that is going to happen. That's what I believe.
See, I think technologies are right now at a stage where this is possible and relatively straightforward if we use the right technologies. If you looked at some of the large internet companies, right, whether it is Google or Facebook or whatever, over a period of time, over the last decade, their technologies have matured to stuff like event-driven pipelines, event-driven event buses, where we are not talking about integrating things through a data warehouse or something post facto, but as soon as an event happens in any one of my systems, I generate an event and that goes onto a bus where various aspects are observing this particular event and have to do whatever they need to do. For example, in our system, we've built our architecture that way, where let us say a customer does a merchant transaction at, let's say, by buying something on Myntra through Airtel Payments Bank. What happens is we capture this event. This event is basically just a merchant transaction. From a particular account, so much is debited into this merchant's account. It's as much as that. But when we get this and it gets into the system, now this particular event is flowing through a pipeline. Think of it like a whole pipeline where multiple systems are looking at it. I enrich this transaction with the customer profile information. Then there is a merchant. I get the merchant information to it. Then somebody else is looking at this and saying, oh, Sharath did a transaction on Myntra. He or she normally does online shopping, and hence some categorization is happening near real time. So that enrichment of this data in near real time is something that is possible very much with current technologies. And we don't have to go with a slightly legacy solution of data warehouses and all. So this can actually drive a complete integration end to end in a very incremental and in a very rich manner. So right now on my system, I can get a customer 360 with this. I can also get a merchant 360, which says, hey, I have maybe 500 merchants. Of these merchants, how is their business going? What is this merchant seeing? In which areas of the country are this merchant's customers buying on my platform? I now have a merchant this thing, which I can give insights to the merchant saying, hey, in, let's say, Pune, there used to be more transactions that were happening, let's say last month, but we're not seeing as many transactions now. Would you want to raise or create an offer for any Airtel Payment Bank customer in Pune for this next 1 week? These are insights that I can do based on this. And now all this is happening real time. So it is very efficient from an IT systems perspective. I don't have to invest in a very large data warehouse system where all data is being pumped in, and in batches we are running multiple stuff, which is very intensive, right? So I think the technologies are there. We need to start imbibing them into these things. Are they being used in other places? All internet companies are using something like this. And they have sort of open sourced it or given it to these things. There are very mature solutions right now. And that's what I keep telling my teams. If we think our goal is that we are building an internet scale bank, we have to think like internet companies. We have to look for millions of customers, process millions of transactions in a short period of time. And if we can think like an internet company, I think as a banking industry, as a bank, we are successful. And we can achieve that goal that we talked about, right? Be part of a customer's life every day, not once in a while. And be able to deliver the services at that time when they need it through the right channel that is necessary.
It's very interesting. So, is there a term for this? Can we call it distributed intelligence? Or
No, it's just event-driven systems. It's just event-driven systems, and we pump all of this into something that we call a data lake.
Data lake. Okay.
Yeah.
Mohit sir, your thoughts on unstructured data distribution.
I'll say that that my take on integration of unstructured and structured data, it should be a conscious call for individual bank or organization. Basically, your data should get enriched and not cluttered. That's the only thing you have to keep in mind and make all your strategies and decisions based on that.
That's very nice. It's very easy to clutter up things. You can look at my desk.
So that's it. So that's the call bank has to take. Yeah.
Closing remarks from Ashit and Satyan.
I think, integration is the key. Really speaking, Sharath explained it very well, we are in that era where everything has to fall in place with each other. So, whatever we were discussing, Mr. Babu Thomas was talking at the beginning of this discussion as to how things have evolved very, very, very quickly over the last 5 or 7 years. I think all that is coming from the integration. We started breaking down those silos some years back, and that's where, and today we are seeing the power of that. Whenever we access our mobile or do a digital banking transaction, everything is integrated in the backend. So APIs are the way to go, and integration is the key going forward.
Thank you, Ashit, for reinforcing that. And
I think very valuable insights from the panel, and I'd just like to add that I use a term called intelligent workflows, right? And to the Sharath's point or what Ashit is saying, where you have keeping the customers in mind, you have these workflows designed whether to service them or to give them more value. Those workflows are basically embedded with your analytics, whether it's real time or your with the other insights. It could be enabled with automation. It could be enabled with other set of technologies. So that end of the day, those workflows are intelligent workflows are addressing customer needs and offering some value-added things. So, and that's all enabled through APIs capabilities, right? So those workflows which are in analytics embedded and API enabled is the way to go for servicing various customers. So whether you are creating a platform, whether you're creating a data lake, whether you're creating two parties like data rich and data poor, or data rich to data rich, all this will be enabled through these API ecosystems powered by data, right? And what the backend platform, what we call is now the next generation data platform. What Sharath said, it would have these real-time capabilities, it should have unstructured capabilities, it should have structured capabilities. But at the same time, you have to be very careful and protect your data. So your data security, data governance, data privacy as IDPR is coming in. So you would be owner of data protection, is a data processor and data owner. So those combination is what we call as backend next generation data platform, catering to all this needs of the evolving needs of the banking customer, right? And we continue to cater to that. So that's the way to go. But really great insights. I really thank so much to the panel for their valuable insights.
I'm equally thankful to all of you. That was a fantastic learning discussion. Lots of interesting things, but the best thing is everything got kind of put together. We're not talking of insights in silos. We are talking of insights that are actually coming together and meshing with each other. Where this is how API and data and unstructured data and customers and everything comes together.
So Manoj, kudos to you. You integrated and put the flow.
Yeah, this is a tough topic to manage.
Yeah, thank you very much. That is wonderful.
Yeah,
thank you, everyone.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Really a
Thank
pleasure.
you, Babu and Manoj, sir.
Thanks,
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Have a
Babu
nice
and Manoj,
Bye-bye.
for the organization. Yeah, bye-bye.